So I did a poll recently where I asked my followers, all 12 of them, what topics they'd like me to cover, and overwhelmingly, y'all wanted to know how best to talk to other women about men's problems without coming across as combative or being accused of having internalized misogyny. Well, ask and you shall receive, so here goes. The most important thing to remember in any argument is your approach. And yes, I'm aware that that can be especially difficult, particularly when whatever topic you're arguing challenges someone's core beliefs. Unfortunately, much of what I and other advocates for men discuss directly challenges ideas and philosophies so deeply ingrained in society that they're treated as gospel, or for the non religious, as indisputable fact. It is therefore imperative that when countering these ideals, you keep a level head, responding with a delicate balance of firm logic and emotional intelligence, intermixed with a heavy dose of empathy, hard though it may be at times, because the last thing you want to do is come across as angry, even if you have every reason to be. That said, the best way to start a conversation is by appealing to shared values. Instead of framing your argument as an opposition to feminism, try framing it as an extension of its original goals: fairness, justice, and equality. Many women don't want to think of themselves as being unfair or biased, so showing them how certain feminist narratives create the very same inequalities for men their foremothers fought so hard to rectify for women can be eye opening, if not a bit jarring. Don't go overboard, though. Remember, the goal is to change their mind, which more often than not takes time. In other words, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and slow and steady does win the race. You also have to be smart, which leads me to tip two: using relatable stories. For female advocates such as myself, this isn't going to be difficult. For men, though, it can and often is, as the male brain more often than not defaults to facts and statistics over appeals to emotion. And while facts and statistics are important, you have to remember who you're talking to. The vast majority of people you'll be trying to convince and or appeal to are women, and our brains don't function the same way yours do. That's not a bad thing, but it does mean that you have to tailor your arguments to our sensibilities. Communication is a two-way street. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it. After all, you wouldn't deliver a speech in English to someone who only speaks German. Yet in today's discourse, we often assume that misunderstandings are solely the listener's fault, when in reality, it's the speaker's job to tailor their message for maximum clarity and impact. That said, women respond more readily to personal stories and real life examples they can then relate to than facts and figures. I've had more success sharing stories of boys struggling in school, loving fathers being denied access to their children from family court, and men struggling with mental health issues that are either written off or not taken seriously until it's too late than I've ever had by quoting studies. Yes, the studies help, and you should definitely be using them to back up your anecdotal evidence, but the fact remains that women are more likely to reconsider their stance if they can emotionally connect to men's struggles than if you just throw numbers at them. There's a joke in here somewhere about girl math, but I'll leave that to y'all down in the comments. My third tip is to avoid falling into the trap of combativeness. Inevitably, they're going to disagree with you, but instead of responding as someone fundamentally against them, position yourself as someone who's trying to expand the conversation rather than just counter it. Replying with things like, I think there's an angle we haven't considered, or I used to think that until I learned dot dot dot, can make the discussion less aggressive or antagonistic. Again, marathon, not sprint. You're leaving breadcrumbs. They're not going to follow you if the distance between point A and point B is so wide Evel Knievel couldn't make it. You've got to break it down into smaller steps, otherwise you lose them, which brings me to tip numero four: challenge without attacking. Either you are a woman and you know yourself to be guilty of this occasionally, or you're a man and this bugs the crap out of you. But women shut down when they feel personally attacked and or blamed. And that's because we tend to internalize criticism far more than men do, turning everything inward instead of outward. As annoying as this is, and something you're going to have to deal with if you want to get your message across. Instead of saying feminism is harming men, try saying, I think some modern feminist ideas unintentionally hurt men in ways we might not have realized. This will hopefully keep them engaged rather than on the defensive, because as we all know, women on defense can get downright mean, changing the conversation from one of healthy debate to one filled with personal attacks and character assassination faster than a freaking cheetah on crack. Tip five is to show how so many modern feminist talking points and ideals not only hurt men but women as well. For example, let's take one of the most popular modern feminist battle cries: I'm a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. Originally intended to empower women, in practice it often backfires by discouraging them from seeking or accepting support from men even when they desperately need it. This narrative hurts men essentially by telling them they're obsolete, relics of a bygone era and of no worth or value in today's modern society, but it also hurts women who do want a more traditional relationship or male support, shaming them as being either weak and or regressive and inferior. This creates an environment where men feel largely unwanted while women feel pressured to bear every burden alone, leading to elevated levels of stress, burnout, and an overall dissatisfaction in personal and romantic relationships. A perfect example of the road to hell is being paved with good intentions because instead of freeing women, this mindset traps them into an exhausting, unrealistic expectation of self sufficiency while simultaneously stripping men of their purpose and place in society. It's a lose lose for both sexes, and it's a problem feminists, for the most part, are choosing to ignore. Another example is the myth of toxic masculinity and its rise to prominence in today's public discourse. Spend any amount of time on the internet, and you'll find a bevy of women telling men their inherent natural traits, such as stoicism, protectiveness, ambition, are fundamentally oppressive, while simultaneously expecting men to provide, protect, and perform in times of crisis. This mixed messaging leaves men confused, discouraged, and unsure of how to navigate their roles in modern society. Some withdraw altogether, while others suppress their emotions to avoid being labeled toxic, leading to mental health struggles and skyrocketing male suicide rates. Women, in turn, suffer the consequences of a culture that discourages men from embracing positive masculine traits. When men are shamed out of their strength, leadership, and willingness to take responsibility, women are left to pick up the slack, whether in relationships, families, or the workplace. The very framework meant to liberate women often leaves them burdened, unsupported, and wondering where have all the good men gone? The exact opposite of what most feminists claim they want to achieve. Which brings me to my last tip and my own personal standard, and that is be a living example. When other women see me, an intelligent, confident woman, advocating for men with grace and conviction, it shatters the tired stereotype that only misogynistic men care about these issues. The truth is, we're in this together. Men need women just as much as women need men, and pretending otherwise has only left us more divided, resentful, and exhausted. The old adage, it takes two, exists for a reason, because today society thrives when men and women support, respect, and uplift each other. If we truly want equality, we must stop treating gender issues like zero sum games. United we stand, divided we fall, and ladies, with great power comes great responsibility. So let's rise to the occasion, use our voices for good, and stop thinking only of ourselves because a better world for men is a better world for all of us. Well, guys, I hope this helped. Go forth, my nuts, do good, and I will see y'all later. Bye.